What if I told you that there's a mental technique so powerful, so dangerously effective, that it was actively banned from mainstream psychology and deliberately erased from academic institutions? Not because it didn't work, but because it worked too well, producing results so immediate and undeniable that it threatened everything we've been taught about how change actually happens in our lives. I know that sounds impossible, maybe even like an exaggeration, but stay with me here because what you're about to discover has been hidden in plain sight for nearly a century. There's a method that can create transformation in moments rather than months, that can shift your entire reality before you've even finished your morning coffee. And the reason you've never heard about it isn't because it's ineffective. It's because the results appeared too quickly for the established system to explain or control. Has this ever happened to you? You've tried everything: therapy, affirmations, visualization, positive thinking. But real change still feels frustratingly out of reach. You might get temporary results, a fleeting moment of progress, but then everything seems to snap back to the same old patterns. You've probably wondered if there's something fundamentally broken in you, or if transformation is just reserved for other people, the lucky ones who somehow figured out the secret code. But here's the truth that changes everything. You're not broken, and you're not missing some special gift. What you're missing is a specific technique that works with your mind's natural architecture rather than against it. A technique so elegant and so immediate in its effects that when people first experience it, they describe the results as nothing short of miraculous. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the globe. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, the woman who discovered this method understood something that modern neuroscience is only now beginning to validate: that there's a backdoor into human consciousness, a way to bypass all the resistance and defense mechanisms that keep most people trapped in the same cycles for decades. While conventional approaches insist that meaningful change requires years of slow, gradual work, she found a way to reprogram the deepest layers of the mind almost instantaneously. And the results? People would apply this technique, and within hours, sometimes even minutes, their entire reality would begin to shift. Opportunities that had been invisible suddenly became obvious. Relationships that had been stuck for years would heal seemingly overnight. Financial breakthroughs would materialize as if the universe itself had been waiting for permission to deliver. What you're about to discover isn't theory or wishful thinking. This is a practical method that produces measurable, consistent results. And once you understand why it works, why it was considered too dangerous for mainstream acceptance, you'll never approach transformation the same way again. The question isn't whether this technique works. The evidence for that is overwhelming. The question is, what becomes possible in your life when you finally have access to it? Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding what's actually happening behind the scenes of your mind changes everything about how you approach transformation. See, there's an invisible code that's been running your life on autopilot since childhood, and here's the uncomfortable truth most people never realize. This code doesn't respond to willpower. It doesn't care about your positive affirmations or how many times you repeat a mantra in the mirror. It's completely immune to forced positivity and surface-level mindset shifts. This is exactly why so many manifestation methods feel frustratingly inconsistent. You might get a result here and there, just enough to keep you believing, but then everything reverts back to the familiar pattern. It's not because you're doing something wrong or because the universe is ignoring you. It's because you're trying to communicate with your subconscious in a language it doesn't understand. You're knocking on the front door while the hidden architecture of your mind operates through a completely different entrance, responding to something far more elegant and direct. What makes this discovery so revolutionary is that it bridges two worlds that have been kept artificially separate for far too long. On one side, you have ancient spiritual wisdom that understood consciousness as the primary creative force. On the other, You have cutting-edge neuroscience that's now validating these same principles through brain imaging and quantum physics. When you bring these together, when you understand the actual mechanism behind how your mind shapes your experience, everything shifts. If this resonates with you, hit that subscribe button. This is where we explore the deeper truths about consciousness and transformation, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. Here's what most people don't realize about their daily existence. You're not passively observing reality like you're watching a movie screen. Every single moment, you're actively selecting from an infinite field of possibilities that exists all around you right now. Think about that for a second. Your brain isn't just receiving information from a fixed external world. It's functioning as a transmitter, constantly broadcasting a specific frequency based on your deepest beliefs, your emotional patterns, and those unconscious programs running in the background that you're not even aware of. The universe, this field of pure potential, responds to that frequency with absolute precision. It's not random, and it's not selective. When your internal frequency aligns with a particular version of reality, that's when the magic happens. Opportunities that were always there suddenly become visible. People respond to you differently, warmly, as if you've become magnetic. Obstacles that seemed insurmountable yesterday now have obvious solutions today. Your decisions become clearer. Your path becomes evident. And the journey that once felt like pushing a boulder uphill suddenly feels like you're being carried by an invisible current. This isn't about luck or coincidence or being born under the right star. This is about understanding the hidden truth behind how consciousness and reality interact at the most fundamental level. The impact of this revelation is profound because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every moment becomes an opportunity to adjust your broadcast, to fine-tune your frequency, to select a different possibility from the infinite field. Write in the comments, "I'm tuning my frequency now." There's a metaphor that makes this entire mechanism crystal clear, and once you understand it, you'll see your entire life through a completely different lens. Imagine your mind as a cinema projector sitting in a dark theater. The universal field, that infinite realm of possibilities we just talked about, is the screen. It's blank, vast, containing every possible scene, every potential outcome, every version of your life that could ever exist. They're all there, simultaneously, waiting. Now here's where it gets fascinating. The projector, your consciousness, determines which film plays on that screen. Your beliefs act as the lens that focuses the image. Your emotions are the light source that gives it intensity and color. And those subconscious patterns, those programs that have been running since childhood, they're the film reel itself, playing the same scenes over and over and over unless you deliberately change what's loaded in the machine. Most people spend their entire lives sitting in the audience of their own existence, watching the screen, reacting to what appears, completely unaware that they're the ones operating the projector. They see struggle projected and think that's just how life is. They see limitation, scarcity, repeated patterns of disappointment, and they accept it as objective reality, as something happening to them from the outside. But the hidden truth behind the scenes is that the projector has access to infinite reels, the version where you're thriving, where relationships flow effortlessly, where abundance comes naturally. That film exists right now. It's not something you need to create or earn or become worthy of. It already exists in the field. The only question is whether your internal structure, your beliefs and emotional patterns are tuned to play that particular version. This isn't just beautiful philosophy or motivational theory anymore. Modern science has actually caught up to what was understood intuitively for centuries, and the evidence is absolutely undeniable. There's a famous experiment that fundamentally changed physics forever, something that still makes scientists uncomfortable because the implications are so profound. Researchers were studying particles of light, trying to understand their most basic behavior. When they sent these particles through two slits without observing them, the particles acted like waves, creating an interference pattern as if they were in multiple places at once, existing as pure possibility. If something clicked for you today, just tap that like button. It helps this message reach more people who need to hear it. But here's where reality gets strange. The moment they added a detector to observe which slit the particle went through, everything changed. The wave pattern collapsed. The particles suddenly behaved completely differently, as if the act of observation itself had fundamentally altered what they were doing. Think about what that actually means for your daily existence. It means consciousness isn't separate from the material world. Your awareness, your attention, your observation is literally participating in determining what becomes real. The external world doesn't exist independently from you, fixed and unchangeable. It's responding to you, collapsing from infinite potential into specific form based on who you are internally, based on what you're observing and expecting. This is documented, repeatable, scientific evidence showing that the observer and the observed are intimately connected in ways that completely challenge our everyday assumptions. Your internal state is influencing the field of possibilities around you at every single moment, making decisions about what becomes solid and what remains potential. Put down, the observer affects the observed. But here's the challenge that trips up most people on this journey. The hidden obstacle that explains why knowing all of this information still isn't enough to create lasting transformation. The real revelation is understanding just how much of your broadcasting is happening completely outside your conscious awareness. Research in neuroscience has revealed something startling. More than 90% of your daily decisions, your reactions, your perceptions, they're not coming from your conscious rational mind at all. They're being directed by unconscious processes, by patterns that were programmed into your subconscious years ago, sometimes decades ago, and they're still running in the background right now, determining what you notice, what you attract, and what you believe is possible. Your subconscious is like a massive storage system that recorded every experience you've ever had. Every comment your parents made about money when you were 5 years old. Every moment you felt rejected or unworthy. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every time someone told you that you weren't good enough or that success required struggle, all of it got recorded and accepted as truth. And here's the critical part that changes everything about how you approach transformation. Your subconscious doesn't analyze or question what's stored there. It doesn't debate whether those old beliefs are still accurate or helpful. It simply obeys them, working tirelessly 24 hours a day to keep proving them true in your current reality, because that's what it was designed to do. Maintain consistency with whatever it considers to be fact. This is the hidden truth behind why positive affirmations so often fail. You can stand in front of a mirror saying you're abundant 1,000 times and still struggle financially. Your conscious mind might be repeating the words, but if your subconscious holds a contradictory belief from childhood, it will reject that new information instantly and keep broadcasting the old frequency. The impact of this is profound because it means real transformation requires accessing that subconscious layer directly, speaking its language, bypassing the resistance that blocks surface-level attempts at change. And there's another mechanism at play here that most people have never even heard of. Something happening in your brain right now that's determining what you can and cannot see in your daily reality. Every single second, billions of pieces of information are flooding your senses. Sights, sounds, possibilities, opportunities, connections. Your conscious mind can't possibly process all of that data. It would be completely overwhelmed. So there's a filter, a screening mechanism that acts as a gatekeeper, deciding what makes it through to your awareness and what gets blocked out completely. But here's the part that changes everything about how you understand your circumstances. The criteria this filter uses to decide what's relevant isn't based on logic or what would actually benefit you. It's based entirely on what your subconscious already believes to be true. If your subconscious has accepted the belief that money is difficult, this filter will literally screen out opportunities for financial gain. They could be right in front of you, clear as day to someone else, but your brain won't even register them. They're invisible to you, not because they don't exist, but because your internal programming has deemed them irrelevant to your reality. Your beliefs aren't just influencing your interpretation of what you see. They're determining what portions of reality you're even capable of perceiving in the first place. Write in the comments, "I see the filter now." So knowing all of this, understanding how the subconscious operates and how this filter determines your perception, the question becomes obvious. How do you actually reprogram these systems without triggering the massive resistance that blocks most attempts at change? This is where the band technique comes in, the method that was considered too powerful, too immediate in its effects for mainstream acceptance. The breakthrough is deceptively simple, almost elegant in its design. Instead of using affirmations or declarations that your subconscious can immediately argue with and reject, you use questions. Not just any questions, but carefully formulated ones that contain a hidden assumption embedded within them. When you tell yourself something like, "I am wealthy," your subconscious might instantly respond with doubt, showing you all the evidence that contradicts that statement. Your bank account, your bills, your current circumstances. The resistance is immediate, and the affirmation bounces off without ever penetrating the deeper layers of your mind. But when you ask yourself a question like, "Why has it become so easy for me to attract abundance lately?" something completely different happens behind the scenes. Your conscious mind can't argue with a question the same way it argues with a statement. Questions create what psychologists call a cognitive gap, a new, open loop that your brain is neurologically wired to close. The human mind literally cannot tolerate an unanswered question. It's psychologically uncomfortable. So your brain automatically starts searching for answers, gathering evidence, making connections, all without you forcing anything. The genius of this approach is in the assumption embedded within the question itself. You're not claiming that abundance exists. You're not trying to convince yourself of something your subconscious doesn't believe. You're assuming it's already happening and simply asking your mind to explain why. This bypasses resistance entirely because you're not fighting your current beliefs. You're inviting your subconscious to shift its filter, to start noticing evidence that supports this new premise. And once that question is planted, that filter we talked about immediately adjusts. It begins scanning your environment for proof that abundance is easy, for moments that validate this perspective, for opportunities you would have completely missed before. But there's a window of time that makes this technique exponentially more powerful, a moment that most people completely waste every single day. The 60 seconds right before you fall asleep might be the most potent opportunity you have to directly access and reprogram your subconscious mind. As you move from full wakefulness into sleep, your brain waves shift from your normal alert state down into frequencies where the barrier between your conscious and subconscious mind dissolves almost completely. There's no analytical mind pushing back, no inner critic analyzing whether something is true or possible. Whatever you impress upon your consciousness in these final moments before sleep goes directly into the subconscious and gets processed throughout the entire night as if it were absolute, unquestionable truth. So, instead of falling asleep, worried about tomorrow, or replaying problems, you bring yourself into a state of deep peace and then ask your question with genuine curiosity, as if you're inquiring about something that's already happened. You fall asleep in that frequency, in that emotional state of it being done, and during the night your filter adjusts, your subconscious accepts new instructions, and transformation becomes inevitable. So knowing all of this, understanding how the subconscious operates and how this filter determines your perception, the question becomes obvious. How do you actually reprogram these systems without triggering the massive resistance that blocks most attempts at change? This is where the band technique comes in, the method that was considered too powerful, too immediate in its effects for mainstream acceptance. The breakthrough is deceptively simple, almost elegant in its design. Instead of using affirmations or declarations that your subconscious can immediately argue with and reject, you use questions. Not just any questions, but carefully formulated ones that contain a hidden assumption embedded within them. When you tell yourself something like, "I am wealthy," your subconscious might instantly respond with doubt, showing you all the evidence that contradicts that statement. Your bank account, your bills, your current circumstances. The resistance is immediate, and the affirmation bounces off without ever penetrating the deeper layers of your mind. But when you ask yourself a question like, why has it become so easy for me to attract abundance lately? Something completely different happens behind the scenes. Your conscious mind can't argue with a question the same way it argues with a statement. Questions create what psychologists call a cognitive gap, an open loop that your brain is neurologically wired to close. The human mind literally cannot tolerate an unanswered question. It's psychologically uncomfortable, so your brain automatically starts searching for answers, gathering evidence, making connections, all without you forcing anything. The genius of this approach is in the assumption embedded within the question itself. You're not claiming that abundance exists. You're not trying to convince yourself of something your subconscious doesn't believe. You're assuming it's already happening and simply asking your mind to explain why. This bypasses resistance entirely because you're not fighting your current beliefs. You're inviting your subconscious to shift its filter, to start noticing evidence that supports this new premise. And once that question is planted, that filter we talked about immediately adjusts. It begins scanning your environment for proof that abundance is easy, for moments that validate this perspective, for opportunities you would have completely missed before. But there's a window of time that makes this technique exponentially more powerful, a moment that most people completely waste every single day. The 60 seconds right before you fall asleep might be the most potent opportunity you have to directly access and reprogram your subconscious mind. As you move from full wakefulness into sleep, your brain waves shift from your normal alert state down into frequencies where the barrier between your conscious and subconscious mind dissolves almost completely. There's no analytical mind pushing back, no inner critic analyzing whether something is true or possible. Whatever you impress upon your consciousness in these final moments before sleep goes directly into the subconscious and gets processed throughout the entire night as if it were absolute, unquestionable truth. So instead of falling asleep, worried about tomorrow, or replaying problems, you bring yourself into a state of deep peace, and then ask your question with genuine curiosity, as if you're inquiring about something that's already happened. You fall asleep in that frequency, in that emotional state of it being done, and during the night your filter adjusts, your subconscious accepts new instructions, and transformation becomes inevitable. If you've made it this far, I want you to know something important. That says a lot about you. You're not here looking for quick fixes or surface-level motivation that fades by tomorrow morning. You're genuinely on a path of real transformation, seeking the deeper mechanisms that actually create lasting change. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of person I create this content for. If something shifted while you were watching this, if a piece clicked into place or you recognized a pattern you've been running unconsciously, I'd genuinely love to have you as part of this community. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel because what we explore here isn't just theory or feel-good content. It's the practical wisdom that can genuinely influence your decisions, reshape your mindset, and accelerate your entire journey. When you subscribe, you're making sure you don't miss the next revelation that might be exactly what you need to hear at exactly the right moment. Also, leave a comment down below saying, "This message was meant for me, so I know you were here until the end." I genuinely read every single comment, and it creates this beautiful connection, knowing we're all walking this path together, supporting each other's transformation. And if you felt value in what we explored today, just tap that like button. It helps more people discover this content, and honestly, it lets me know this message is landing the way it's meant to. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into how your consciousness shapes reality in ways you probably haven't considered yet. Click and continue with me over there. I'll see you in the next one.